HR Universe, and welcome to HR TV. 2023 was a great year of highlighting HR professionals, discovery, and learning on Let's Talk HR with Dr. Deneen. So much so, we decided to feature a best practices episode to recap some of the great information learned and to review some of the people we interviewed in that year. Let's start with the smashing new series started in 2023 called Careers That Rock. Let's take a look at the first episode featuring none other than Stephanie Skurlock, news anchor, WREG News Channel 3, when we discuss the career of broadcast journalism. Hello and welcome to Let's Talk HR with Dr. Deneen, the talk show that spotlights HR professionals and talks about all things HR. Today we are launching a new series called Careers That Rock. Oftentimes, HR professionals are instrumental in helping people find sustainable careers and finding their niche in the world of work. This series will highlight amazing professions and provide insight to those who may be interested in pursuing a career that rocks for them. I am delighted to introduce the first guest of the Careers That Rock series. She is none other than my friend, Stephanie Skurlock, anchor, WREG Channel 3 News, and the career we will highlight today is broadcast journalism. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello, Dr. Deneen. I'm honored that you have me on the show, especially since this is a show about careers that rock. Because I'm honored that you think that being a broadcast journalist is a career that rocks.
Yes.
A lot of people out there, the media at times in the recent history has not been seen as one with, I guess, a lot of, people respect and maybe question, is this fake news and that kind of thing. Well, I'm glad to see that you recognize that journalism, broadcast journalism, is still a career that rocks.
It does rock, and that's why she is here today. And I am so honored to have you here to talk about your career and to give the advice that you will give to those who may be interested.
Thank you.
What made you decide to go into the profession of broadcast journalism?
Well, I guess when I went to college, I wanted to find something that I was passionate about, something that I liked to do, something that I thought I was good at, and something that I could make some money at.
That's the three. It's always the Trinity, right? It's
and
the three.
So growing up in a small town in Arkansas, I grew up in Dermot, Arkansas, and which my parents taught school there. We didn't have any relatives there, but I just had a passion for speech and delivery, and every opportunity I had, I would be, on a program at church and in a program at school. And for example, during Easter, I always wanted the longest Easter speech. I wanted a monologue. I'm thinking, I got an audience here in this small town, in this church, and I'm gonna go with it. So, I always liked speech delivery and that kind of thing. So when I went to college, I explored what kind of careers that might, how I could use that to enter into a career that I would, love and be passionate about, and that kind of landed me in broadcast journalism.
So, broadcast journalism, would you say that is an untraditional profession? How do you think about that? What are your takes?
I think when I entered the business, 31 plus 3.5, 35 years ago almost, it maybe was an untraditional kind of career. But I just think there's so many other opportunities other than just being on TV and just being a reporter. And actually, it's a lot of jobs in careers in my building, not just on-air talent, but you have your producers, you have your whole entire web team. We have web reporters, we have web producers, we have photographers, videographers, we have editors, we have a sales team, we have a traffic department that keeps up with what goes on TV. So we have engineers. We've got so many jobs within broadcast journalism that maybe people may start on air, and then they'd say, "Oh, you know what? I'm really liking this sales thing or this
Yeah.
marketing thing. So, I'm going to stay in the industry, but I'm going to branch out and do other things."
That was amazing. Broadcast journalism, a career that really rocks. The second best practice episode is the 5 levels of leadership, where Melinda Tyson and I discuss some of the intriguing information about leadership. You're gonna love this one. There are 5 levels of leadership. Want to know what they are and how you can utilize them as a leader? Well, today we will do just that. We will learn the 5 levels of leadership and how you can utilize them to become a more effective leader. Joining me today is Melinda Tyson, founder of HR Consulting Services, and we will talk all about those 5 leadership levels today. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much.
Well, good. I am so glad you're here on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for this
so
opportunity.
glad that you're here. These leadership levels today.
Yeah.
And so, Melinda, we know that leadership origins started almost, 5,000 years ago in the Egyptian arena, and then there's hierarchies, and they're still happening now.
Yes.
And there's so many gurus, so many therapists and theorists around leadership.
Yeah.
And so there's one guru though that you want to kind of talk about today.
Yeah.
So who is that?
So it is Dr. John C. Maxwell.
Yes.
So I have been a student of Dr. Maxwell for a long time. I would have to date myself going back to my days when I was in Mary Kay. As a sales director in Mary Kay, we were heavily influenced by John Maxwell. And their teachings and leading teachings and the things that we did. And so and taking that and transitioning it and moving into a more corporate environment, I took those levels of leadership and started to do training and facilitate that training from frontline staff to frontline managers, as well as to executive leaders of doing the 5 levels of leadership.
Well, that is awesome. That is wonderful, because we talk about leadership today, and it's just so many ways that we talk about it. You got your transformational leadership. You have your top-down leadership, servant leadership. All of those things happen. So today we're going to talk about the Maxwells, right?
The Maxwell.
5 levels of leadership. Go ahead and tell us what they are.
So those 5 levels of leadership start with permission. Then you move into position, permission, then you move into production, then you move into professional development, and then you move into pinnacle. So those are the 5 levels that John Maxwell teaches.
Okay, so let's talk about each of them briefly. Position, tell us about it.
So position is basically you're a new leader, and so people follow you because they have to.
Yes.
Right?
Because they have to. You're the manager of HR. You're the director of HR. People have to follow you because of your title. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And then the next one is permission. And permission is at that moment when you have received buy-in to where they want to work with you. And so you have received permission as a leader to work with them.
Okay. So position and then permission. That means the people have started to trust you, maybe?
Yes.
Trust you, look at you as a leader, look to you as a person of influence, maybe? So that's permission. So, and then the next one.
Then the next one is production. And that is where you produce results. And that is where, as a leader, you don't coach your team and train your team to where they want to produce and they want to do well for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So production stage. You got the buy-in. They start to formulate and start acting as a team.
Yes.
And then they started thinking about the team in mind.
Exactly.
Operating in excellence, maybe, and doing those things that's going to make the whole team and the leader look good. Production. All right. Give me the next one.
The next one is professional development.
That's your expertise.
And
Tell us about it.
And that is where, as a leader, when you help to produce other leaders.
Okay.
And that is where you take the time and where you help to coach, grow them, give them what they need, and to help them be great and for them to move. And then as you produce other leaders, you teach and you train them how to produce other leaders.
All right. So that's the training piece.
That's the training.
That's where the leader is coaching, right?
Yes.
Mentoring.
Yes.
All of those three together, right?
Yeah.
They're doing all of those things, and the employees start to trust,
Correct.
right? And then act on that. So let me ask you this. So do the levels of leadership, do they go in that order, particularly in that order? You know?
They don't necessarily go in that order because you could be at a different level with each employee.
Okay, all right.
Because as a leader, your interaction and your level of engagement is different with all of your employees, just based on where they are and where you are with them.
Okay. So as a new leader, you find out that as a new leader, you're coming in fresh, right? And then you're starting to incorporate these 5 levels of leadership. So is there an example for a new leader, which level works best for them, or what way should a new leader?
Well, automatically, a new leader will start at the position level.
Okay.
Just because, especially if they're a new level, new leader, new team, new people, they don't necessarily know who you are.
Right.
But however, you should quickly try to get to the permission level.
Yes.
Because that is the level of where your team will get buy-in from you, and they will want to continue to do the work because they want to do it for you, not just because you're my boss and I have to do it.
Right.
Right. And what happens a lot of times with new leaders, some tends to be more of a technical, but not necessarily have those people skills to transition into that role.
Right.
In addition, it may be that they are peers with some of the people that now they have to lead, so that transition can be a little challenging in the beginning.
Well, there you go. You're a peer. You work side by side. You have the same job title. You interview for a position. You become the leader now.
Yes.
So those challenges could be very interesting, right? Now you're telling me what to do, right? So how do you navigate through that? What's your opinion on navigating through that type of scenario?
You know, my coaching and guidance to new leaders when they find themselves in those situations, to always be fair.
Always be fair.
Right? Do not play favorites, hold everyone accountable, and have full transparency.
Okay.
You know, so that no one feels like the leader is being favored to one person as opposed to other. And so, and if you do those things and transitioning into that role, then you'll have a different light when those individuals work with you and you work with them.
And you work with them. Yeah. Were you able to determine which leadership level you're in right now? Fantastic. Data analytics, a topic all HR professionals should know about. Eric Sabatini, Senior Manager of Performance Analytics with the City of Memphis, outlines 3 data analytics you can implement in your workplace today. Watch right now. This series highlights amazing professionals and provides insight for those who may be interested in pursuing a career that rocks for them. I'm delighted to introduce the 5th guest of the Careers That Rock series. He's none other than Eric Sabatini, Senior Manager, HR Analytics and Performance, City of Memphis Government. And the career we will highlight today is data analytics statisticians. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Eric.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
I am so glad that you're here to talk about your amazing career as a data analyst and to share some of your insights to people who may be interested in that same profession. So let's dive right in. Tell us about what is HR analytics and why is it important?
So there's a very good definition of HR analytics that I really like because it's short and to the point. That's usually the best ones.
Yeah.
But it says that basically HR analytics is the identification and analysis of the people drivers of business outcomes.
Okay.
So if you look at those three elements, it's very short, very to the point, and it focuses on the people drivers of business outcomes, because you always have to tie it back to the business outcome, especially the financial side of it.
Yes, so those people are driving outcomes. And so you're using the data, you're using the information to drive outcomes and make decisions.
Yes.
So why is that important to an organization?
So to me, I always go back, I say take a trip back in time a little bit to the 1950s.
Okay.
So a man named Peter Drucker, who was very well known as a management expert, business management expert, said, again, very short, very to the point, you can't manage what you can't measure. We've all heard that. But imagine him saying that in the 1950s when you didn't have the technology that you have today. So the idea of what you can measure, it was really before its time, and now we're getting into a time of technology where we can measure keystrokes, we can measure GPS, where people are going, we can measure just about anything, at least compared to 1950 we can. So that's really coming to fruition, and we're really understanding the value of measuring and taking a measurement and then seeing how we've progressed from one point to another.
So we know there are many different levels of analytics that are used. So explain to us those levels, because there are different levels of it.
Sure. So they're generally considered to be 4 levels in analytics in general.
Okay.
And most organizations are sort of at the entry level, so that's where you see most organizations operating, and some moving up to the higher levels, but you can kind of think of it as a swimming pool and going from the shallow end to the deep end of the analytics pool.
Okay.
But you start off with descriptive analytics. That's basically just what happened. And a lot of times organizations are just like, we just want some information. We want to know, let's say our turnover changed from last month to this month, from 5% to 10%. So we know that now.
Yeah.
The next step up is diagnostic analytics.
All right.
So using kind of big words.
Use them. We're learning today. Here, you're seeing it here.
That means you're actually asking the question, why did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
So you're digging a little deeper. You don't just know that your turnover changed from 5% to 10%. You're a little worried. You want to know, why did that happen?
Yeah.
So you look at, to do that, you might want to do, like an exit survey. As employees leave,
Yes.
what is making you want to leave the organization?
Yes.
So then you go a little deeper into the pool, and there's something called predictive analytics.
Okay.
Now we're starting to ask questions about, how are things relating to each other, and if we pull on this lever, what will happen to turnover? If we turn this knob, what will happen to turnover?
All right.
And you're starting to kind of put those things together. Then, if you want to go way, way to the deep end of the pool,
Let's go to the deep end.
you have something called prescriptive analytics, which I always remember that, thinking of a doctor giving you a prescription.
Yes.
So that means you're really coming full circle. You've used all the data, you've considered all these options, you've determined what's going on, and you've come to a conclusion, and you've made a decision, a truly data-driven decision. And this is how we're going to address turnover.
So let's talk about another one, because we said we're going to talk about 3. Let's talk about another one.
Sure. There's so many in the recruiting area. Offer acceptance rate is something that's pretty easy to start. You just look at how many offers you're making and how many are being accepted. Also in the hiring area, cost to hire.
Yes,
Now
absolutely.
that can be a little more complex because you want to really take in all the factors, everything that drives that cost to fill positions. Then in another area, turnover is huge.
Turnover
Everyone
is
wants
huge.
to measure turnover and reduce bad turnover because there is good turnover and bad turnover.
Yes.
You might have someone stay with you for 25 years and retire. That's great. That's what we want people to do.
Yes.
But then, when someone stays a couple of years and then they voluntarily, leave to go to another organization, that's when we want to start looking at those rates and how often is that happening.
Yes.
So definitely the the turnover rate, and also the retention rate.
Yes.
How long are the employees who are there? How long have they been there? What's their average tenure with the organization?
Yes.
So those are things that you can measure pretty easily, and again, most HR systems, that data is pretty readily available.
It's right there. Go ahead and implement data analytics today. We learned so much. Last, let's take some nuggets of wisdom from none other than John Daniel, the pinnacle of HR executive leadership, when he speaks about executive leadership and what it takes to be one. Yes, he's a legend in the HR industry. Tell us about your career journey as an HR professional.
Yeah, well, in my generation, that middle baby boomers, there weren't a lot of people that started out saying, I'm going to be an HR executive.
Right.
I actually, I came from a large, poor, working class family. I have 8 brothers and sisters, and my father was a police officer. So I went to a large, overcrowded Auburn high school. And to make a long story short, I kind of got lost in the system. So I applied for government grants. My mom and dad had not graduated from college. I had no idea how to apply for college. So I got a government grant to attend community college. And the benefit of that was that some professors saw me and said, you should not be here. You should be at the university.
Yeah.
So they helped me get into the University of Pittsburgh, where I studied political science. But here's where the career starts. I needed a job. So I literally got a job as a messenger on the loading dock of Mellon Bank in Pittsburgh, which is a legendary bank. And I found out that I loved the banking industry, and because it was a place where, people like me could start at the entry level. And I had this vision, that I would rise up to be an executive.
All right.
And it came into my mind very early. But here's where HR comes in. I was kind of a shy, introverted guy early in my career, and one of my bosses sent me to the Dale Carnegie course in effective speaking and human relations.
Oh, yes.
And I flourished in the class. I just loved it. It really kind of opened me up, and I got very good at public speaking and training. And so I went through the bank. I was a teller. I was a loan officer, and somewhere along the way, I got recruited into HR to deliver customer service training. And when I got into HR, I said, this is it. This is my life's work, because I had majored in political science. I'd studied human psychology, and I said, this is it. And after a couple of years, I literally then said, I did set a goal. I literally have this written down on a piece of paper. It's all tattered, but I still have it.
Yeah.
I show it to young people.
Okay.
That, in my early 30s, I set a goal. By the age of 42, I would be the head of HR for a major financial organization.
Wow.
And I did not hit my goal. I was 44 when I was named chief HR officer for a Fortune 500 financial company.
Okay.
And the career path along the way, all the things that I said I needed to do to get there, they didn't happen exactly as I planned it. But it unfolded just as I visioned. And that's what brought me to Memphis, to be the head of HR for what is now Regions Bank.
Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. He set a goal and he fulfilled the goal. Wow. As an HR, and you kind of fell into the profession.
That's right.
Yeah, into banking, which is wonderful for HR executives. You know what's funny? I started out in banking.
I think I remember that.
Yes. See how many years ago this was? Wow, a long time ago with NBC Bank. It was National Bank of Commerce. What's the secret sauce to becoming an effective leader?
Yeah, I think the thing that I benefited from is that working inside the operations department, working in a branch bank, being a teller, being a customer service rep, actually making loans. I actually understood the business. Now, I had never taken a finance and accounting course. So as I started to move up the ladder, I realized that in addition to understanding how the bank worked, if you're going to be an executive, particularly an HR executive that's responsible for organizational development and culture and leadership development, you have to understand how the business works.
Okay.
So I literally got a finance book, and in the evenings I would try to learn finance. Okay. So I've always said to young people, if you want to be an executive and you want to be an executive in HR, you have to understand the business. And so when I sit in executive meetings and they talk about return on tangible common equity or efficiency ratio or capital levels, I understand what they're talking about.
Okay.
And I can then help design the people strategies to support the business strategy. So to me, the path to executive leadership means understanding the business and big picture, vision, I can see things at a big picture and break them down and understand them, and that served me well as I moved to become. I was a better executive than I was an actual HR professional because. So I have a visionary leadership style, but I incorporate the democratic and coaching styles occasionally.
Okay.
And as you move up the ladder, when you're early leader, you have a little bit of responsibility for visioning. You're mostly you mostly have to do, or you still have tasks to do. But as you move up the curve to leadership, visionary leadership becomes the primary leadership style.
Yes.
And that's me. Like that's how my brain works. And I had to learn how to be a coach. I had to learn, and I'm very comfortable with participative leadership styles.
Okay.
I have to be cautious. I've seen a lot of pace setter. One of the destructive leadership styles are the commanding style and the pace setting style.
Yes.
And I'm very labeling those and knowing how they show up is really important, so you avoid them.
Yes.
It really is important. So I think that model, Goldman's model, is really the most helpful.
So one of the goals in leadership is to develop other leaders, right? So how do you transition first line, mid-level leaders into executive leaders?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that I struggled with in my own transition, but also spent a lot of time researching what have academics, what have the consultants learned about the people that are successful in making that transition to executive leadership. So understand the research on it. What happens is, if you're a middle manager, you have responsibility primarily for execution, right?
Yes.
And coaching people and developing people, but it's mostly about execution. When you move to an executive level, it becomes symbolic leadership becomes more important.
Yes.
And understanding, like creating a vision, creating values for the organization, connecting with people, and enlisting them in your vision for the future. And that requires a different skill set.
All right.
What I think is important, what I learned is when you get to the top, a lot of people think, hey, I'm on the C-suite now, they're paying me a lot of money, so I need to make all the decisions, I need to have all the knowledge, I need to be the smartest person in the room, and that's exactly wrong. Edgar Schein, the great academic who studies about culture and leadership, wrote this wonderful book called Humble Leadership.
Yes.
And he talks about the great skill of a senior executive is knowing the questions to ask and really delegating power and responsibility to people around you.
Well, what did you think? Great information and great fun. We've learned so much about best practices in the HR industry. Keeping abreast of today's issues lands you at the top of your game in today's climate. Let's Talk HR with Dr. Deneen will feature more of these episodes in the future. Be sure to watch a new episode of Let's Talk HR with Dr. Deneen, the first of every month on the YouTube channel of the same name, and on Comcast Xfinity Channel 17 and Channel 1091 Monday nights between 8 and 8:30 p.m. Please note you can watch Let's Talk HR with Dr. Deneen and prior episodes at any time. Go to YouTube and type in the talk show title. Be sure to subscribe, no fee, and click on the notification bell. This is HR TV. I'm Dr. Deneen, and I want to talk HR with you. HR forever. See you next time.